It was early morning, and the neighborhood was quiet. Then, the calm was broken. Neighbors heard yelling, loud crashes, and suddenly, silence. When police entered the apartment, they found chaos everywhere: blood on the floor, broken glass across the rooms, and something even more disturbing at the center of it all. It was clear this wasn't random. It was something much closer to home. If you're a fan of true crime and criminal investigations, you won't want to miss our new book, The Ultimate Book of Serial Killers: 180 Files of the World's Most Notorious Murderers, now available on Amazon. You can also purchase the PDF version directly from our website for instant download. You'll find the link in the video description and in a pinned comment. Now, let's dive into today's case. Igor was born on May 17, 1997, in the state of São Paulo, in southeastern Brazil. From the very beginning, his life unfolded within a large and complicated family. His father had formed relationships with several different partners over the years, and from those unions came many siblings. This unconventional structure shaped Igor's personality, giving him both resilience and a sharp awareness of the world around him. Amid the complexity, one bond stood out above the rest: the close connection he built with his younger sister, Marceli. As a boy, Igor revealed a determined and restless spirit. He was ambitious, always looking for ways to challenge himself, and showed an entrepreneurial drive that would define much of his adult life. Business quickly became his true calling. He had a natural ability to recognize opportunities, and he never hesitated to take risks in order to build something of his own. These qualities earned him respect in his community and gradually established him as a rising figure in the business circles of Praia Grande, a coastal city that would become central to his story. While his professional life seemed to move forward with momentum, his personal life was not always as smooth. He had a distant relationship with a child from an earlier romance that had ended without lasting stability. Then, toward the end of 2018, everything appeared to change when he met a young woman who seemed to embody everything he had ever dreamed of. Her name was Rafaela Costa, a year younger than him. To Igor, she was striking not only for her beauty but also for her determination, a trait he found magnetic. Rafaela also longed to build a family, and this shared desire created an instant and profound bond between them. Their relationship moved quickly. In June 2019, they welcomed their first child together, a moment that marked a turning point for Igor. Family became his anchor, the foundation of his values, and the source of his deepest pride. He did not keep this love hidden. On social media, he openly expressed admiration for Rafaela and affection for his children, making it clear to everyone how much they meant to him. By 2022, at just 25 years old, Igor had already launched his first business, a car dealership. As the company grew, so did his ambitions. Soon after, he established a marketing firm, and not long afterward, he expanded his automotive ventures by opening a second branch, this time dedicated exclusively to motorcycles. This new project was different. It was built in partnership with Mario Vitorino, his brother-in-law and best friend. Mario, who was married to Marceli, shared with Igor not only the hard work of long business days, but also leisure time, family moments, and an unshakable sense of loyalty. Igor was usually selective when it came to relationships, careful about who he allowed into his inner circle. Yet with Mario, he let down his guard. Their friendship grew quickly, marked by trust and brotherhood. A similar closeness developed between Raffaella and Marcelli. More than sisters-in-law, they became true friends, supporting one another and building a connection grounded in honesty and complicity. In time, Igor decided to take the next step with Raffaella. During their 5-year anniversary, he proposed marriage. She accepted, and for a moment, it seemed like their lives were perfectly aligned. But the wedding never came. Instead, their relationship began to weaken. Raffaella described episodes where alcohol became a destructive presence in Igor's behavior. Under its influence, he grew jealous, controlling, and verbally aggressive. Although he never physically attacked her, there was one night in a bar when his temper escalated into a fight that ended in criminal charges, leaving a mark on his record, though, without lasting legal consequences. As the years went on, challenges continued. Both Igor and Mario faced an investigation for alleged money laundering. They were ultimately acquitted, but the case generated gossip and suspicion in their community, clouding their reputations with uncomfortable rumors. On July 24, 2024, Raffaella made a difficult decision. She chose to separate from Igor. He resisted the idea at first, but eventually respected her choice and moved temporarily into another apartment he owned. During that period apart, Igor focused on making drastic changes in his life. He believed that if he transformed himself, he could win Raffaella back. Determined, he adopted healthier habits, dedicated himself to losing weight, and most importantly, abandoned alcohol and other substances that had fueled his temper. For nearly a month, he worked to rebuild not just his body, but his self-control. His efforts seemed to pay off. By the end of August, the couple decided to give their relationship another chance. Igor returned to the family home, and for a brief moment, it looked like normalcy had been restored. But peace was short-lived. The reconciliation collapsed almost as quickly as it had begun, and by the end of August, just a month after their first separation, they parted ways again. It was in this fragile context that the fateful night of Friday, August 30th, 2024, unfolded. That afternoon, Igor dropped off his children at his mother's house, promising to return later to spend the night. Once free, he joined his brother-in-law, Mario, at a party organized by one of his own brothers. The event was an annual tradition, this time with the added joy of celebrating their favorite football team's victory. For both men, it was also a chance to escape the shadows of their troubled personal lives. Igor was not the only one suffering a broken relationship. Mario, too, was going through a separation from Marcelli. Although their divorce was not finalized, the couple had been living apart for months. That same night, in another part of the city, Raffaella and Marcelli went out together. They shared dinner and drinks at a restaurant, then decided to head to the very same party, despite knowing their former partners would be there. Their intention was to meet with mutual friends and enjoy the night. Inside the gathering, the atmosphere was tense. The women stayed in one corner while the men remained on the opposite side. Words were not exchanged, though glances occasionally crossed the room. As dawn approached, Raffaella and Marcelli left together. They climbed into Raffaella's car, and she drove her friend to the apartment where Marcelli was staying. Moments later, Igor and Mario also left the party. Igor tried to request a taxi through a ride-hailing app, but Mario insisted on giving him a lift instead. It was a choice that would alter everything. At daybreak on Saturday, August 31st, 2024, the quiet of a Praia Grande neighborhood was shattered. Disturbances were reported from an apartment building, and the building manager, concerned after hearing loud noises, rang the doorbell several times. When no one answered, she called the police. Officers arrived quickly, but even their repeated knocks went unanswered. With the help of a locksmith, they forced the door open. Inside, the scene was chilling. Bloodstains trailed across the floors of the kitchen, the living room, and the dining area, leading them deeper into the apartment. Furniture was overturned, and the entire space looked like chaos had exploded within its walls. Following the traces, the officers reached a bedroom, where the sight awaiting them was far worse. On the floor lay the body of a young man. It was Igor, just 27 years old. A toppled piece of furniture, once fitted with mirrored doors, was lying across his body. The glass had shattered, scattering sharp fragments throughout the room. In the bathroom, investigators discovered a bloodied kitchen knife that had been taken from a drawer left ajar. When they checked with the building staff and reviewed the security cameras, the authorities confirmed what was already suspected. The apartment belonged to Marceli, and the victim was indeed her brother. A family celebration had turned into a family tragedy, one that no one present at the party could have foreseen. No one else was found at the scene, yet the crime scene itself spoke volumes. The level of violence was extreme, suggesting from the very beginning that this case would become one of the most publicized in Brazil, and in the days that followed, the details that emerged only deepened the shock. Forensic experts confirmed that Igor had been killed right where his body was found. He had suffered multiple blows and at least 40 stab wounds, concentrated mainly on his torso, head, and back. The bloodied kitchen knife recovered from the bathroom was identified as the murder weapon. As the brutal case dominated headlines nationwide, investigators began combing through the building's security footage. The recordings allowed them to reconstruct a precise timeline of the night. At 4:32 a.m., Marceli and Rafaela were seen arriving together by car. They parked at the entrance and took the elevator up to the fourth floor. A little over an hour later, cameras captured Rafaela again, this time alone. She entered the elevator and left the building. Just 13 seconds after her departure, another vehicle arrived. It was 5:44 a.m. when Igor and Mario were recorded entering the elevator. Igor was holding his phone, visibly arguing with Mario. 20 minutes later, Mario and Marceli were seen leaving the apartment together. Instead of taking the elevator, they chose the stairs. Minutes later, cameras in the underground garage recorded them crossing the parking area and exiting through the main door. This footage was supported by multiple witness testimonies. Neighbors described hearing shouting coming from the apartment, the kind of yelling that carried rage and despair. According to some, one of the men seemed consumed by fury, screaming that he had been betrayed by those closest to him. He shouted that he loved a woman madly, but that everyone around him had conspired against him while he was left in the dark. These accounts led investigators to their first working theory. The crime was fueled by passion, triggered by the discovery of betrayal within the family circle. With the evidence in hand, the police identified three main suspects: Marceli, just 20 years old, Mario, 23, and Rafaela, 26. A judge issued immediate arrest warrants, ordering the trio to be held for 30 days. But when authorities moved in, the suspects were gone. They had fled. As the investigation unfolded, a new layer of tension emerged. Investigators learned that while driving with Igor earlier that night, Mario had received a phone call. His phone was connected to the car's multimedia system, and on the dashboard screen appeared the name of the caller, Rafaela. Stunned, Igor realized what this meant. At first, he fell silent, but within seconds, silence gave way to rage. He demanded answers. The celebratory mood of the evening dissolved into fury and suspicion. Igor bombarded Rafaela with calls and messages, but she never responded. He opened the location-sharing app they both used and discovered that she was at Marceli's apartment. Enraged, he demanded that Mario drive him there immediately. Warned by Mario and by the flood of messages, Rafaela slipped out of the apartment as quickly as she could. It was in the narrow window of time that followed, once the two men reached the apartment, that the tragedy unfolded. The Pareto family was left devastated. Their grief was compounded by scandal, accusations, and the haunting question of who would raise Igor's children. It was their paternal grandmother who eventually took custody. Then, on September 6th, less than a week after the killing, Marceli and Rafaela surrendered voluntarily to the civil police. Around the same time, Mario's abandoned vehicle was located near a post office. Inside, investigators found what appeared to be bloodstains on the gear shift and seat, along with a bottle bearing similar marks. The car was seized and sent to the General Directorate of Investigations for forensic analysis. Finally, just days later, police received an anonymous tip. It came from one of Igor's brothers. Acting on that information, authorities closed in and captured Mario, ending his brief period on the run. Mario was eventually discovered hiding in a house more than 200 miles from Praia Grande. The residence belonged to one of Rafaela's uncles. He was taken into custody immediately. With all three suspects under arrest, the interrogations began, and almost at once, contradictions started to surface. Although each provided a different version of events, all three agreed on one detail. Rafaela and Mario were involved in a secret relationship. Marceli insisted that she only learned of the affair that very night. Rafaela went even further, admitting that during the early hours of that morning, she and Marceli had also shared an intimate encounter, though she emphasized that it was the first and only time something like that had happened. Through her lawyer, Marceli explained that when Igor and Mario arrived at the apartment, she had been alone, half-dressed, and under the influence of alcohol and other substances. She claimed she heard them arguing but assumed it was just another fight and chose not to interfere. According to her statement, while she was in a dressing room putting on clothes, she heard a loud crash. Her brother had kicked a mirror and shattered it in a fit of rage. When she emerged from the room, she found Igor gravely wounded. Mario, for his part, argued that he acted in self-defense. He alleged that Igor had attacked him with shards of broken glass from the shattered mirror. His defense team even produced photographs of bruises and cuts on his face and hands. But these pictures had been taken 15 days after the crime, raising doubts about their reliability. Rafaela, meanwhile, denied any direct involvement in the killing. She said that because Igor had previously threatened to kill her if she ever betrayed him, she fled the apartment out of fear for her life. Later, while driving toward her mother's house, she claimed she received a message from Mario saying that he had to drug Igor to calm him down, warning her to stay away because he might harm her as well. According to her statement, it wasn't until the following morning, at a gas station meeting arranged with Mario and Marceli, that she learned Igor was dead. Shocked and unable to process the news, she nevertheless followed her in-laws as they planned their next moves. At one point, she left Marceli with her family while she accompanied Mario to a shop to buy clean clothes for him, since his were stained. The two then checked into a hotel where Mario showered and changed. Soon after, Rafaela abandoned him and returned to the city. Detectives, however, began piecing together a very different story. Their working hypothesis was that Rafaela and Mario had conspired together. Screenshots of text messages exchanged in the hours before the killing revealed conversations about spending the night together to celebrate a sports championship victory. For prosecutors, the motive was twofold. Igor stood in the way of their relationship, and his death would benefit them both financially. Mario would become sole owner of the motorcycle dealership, while Rafaela, as the mother of Igor's son, would gain access to inheritance rights. Marceli, as Mario's wife, would also benefit indirectly. On that basis, all three were formally charged with aggravated homicide on grounds of vile motives, premeditation, and use of methods that prevented the victim from defending himself. Investigators emphasized that Igor had been killed by people he trusted, making the betrayal even more striking. In response, the suspects began to adjust their stories. Rafaela denied helping Mario hide, even though he was arrested at her uncle's property. Marceli claimed she had seen nothing because of intoxication and denied letting Mario into the apartment, insisting he had entered on his own with a code he already knew. And all three argued that Igor was unstable, violent, and threatening. But prosecutors rejected these explanations. They pointed out that the shattered furniture had collapsed onto Igor, suggesting he had been pushed, not that he caused the damage himself. They also noted that if Mario had truly acted in self-defense, the injuries would not have numbered in the dozens, and at least one of the three would have sought medical help rather than fleeing. Marceli's defense later requested a second autopsy of Igor's body, though it was never clear what they hoped to gain. This move drew anger from some of Igor's siblings, who accused her of trying to delay the process and prolong the family's suffering. By now, one fact was undeniable. The case had grown into one of Brazil's most complex and emotionally charged criminal trials, fueled by betrayal, hidden relationships, and financial motives. The courts ultimately ruled that Rafaela, Marceli, and Mario would remain in preventive detention without a fixed release date, awaiting trial. Throughout 2025, multiple hearings were held. New witnesses were called. The civil police delegate responsible for the early investigation testified, and additional evidence was presented. It was revealed that the trial would likely proceed before a jury. By early July of that year, after the evidentiary phase was complete, the tribunal denied all requests for release. The judge cited the unusual brutality of the crime, the manipulation of evidence, and the suspects' attempts to flee as justification for keeping them behind bars. As of today, the case remains before the courts. Brazilian society continues to follow the proceedings closely, waiting for a verdict. Will the justice system succeed in delivering a fair and transparent outcome? Or will the web of contradictions, betrayals, and alleged manipulation obscure the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.